My name is Ted Snell and I'm the Director of the Cultural Precinct at the University of Western Australia. And one of the exciting things I've been working on with my colleagues in the Centre for the History of Emotions is trying to bring back the New Fortune Theatre to life. The New Fortune was designed as part of the building in 1962, of the original arts building, and it was through the inspiration of Professor Edwards to bring the centre of the building to life as an Elizabethan stage. So it was based on the Fortune Theatre, and it has a wonderful facility which we're hoping will become once again the central heart of the arts building and an opportunity to bring people onto campus as well as to give those on campus the extraordinary experience of working in a vertical theatre. One of the things that I have learnt since I've been here is that vertical theatre was what really made Elizabethan theatre what it was, and then when it moved to the Jacobean stage it became almost sort of one-dimensional rather than having all that height. So we're really looking for the New Fortune Theatre in its new life to become both a hub of experimental theatre and the way in which vertical theatre can be used in a contemporary context, and also then to reflect back on why Elizabethan theatre was so powerful and so engaging. So the long-term hope for this venue is that it becomes, as I say, a really important asset to the university, an integral part of the teaching, a very important part of the research, and an attraction for external audiences to come onto campus.
Here we are in front of our unique New Fortune stage on the campus of UWA. What's so unique about this stage is that the actual dimensions of it are based exactly on the contract for a stage built in 1600 during Shakespeare's time in London, the Fortune Theatre. And the story of how it actually came here is interesting in itself, because it was almost smuggled in the early 1960s before the arts building was built. The then Professor of English, Alan Edwards, was consulted about what kind of building we should have. He suggested the two courtyards, one this enclosed courtyard, and he suggested various parts of the architecture which he knew amounted to the New Fortune stage, but at the time the university administrators didn't fully realise what he was doing. If they had, they may not have approved of having a stage here. By the very end, though, when he was chair of the committee overseeing the building, the final stage emerged in all its splendour, and people realised that we had a unique asset here, which UWA should be proud of. It was opened in 1964 to a very historic performance of Hamlet, which filled the whole place. This particular theatre takes 500 people, or a little more if they all stand at the bottom there, as they would have in Shakespeare's time. And after that performance of Hamlet, which was very historic, with international stars, for about 20 years, the New Fortune was used quite often. After that, after about 1980, it's fallen into gradual disuse and hasn't been used an awful lot in more recent years. So recently, just last week, we held a very large international gathering to reinvigorate the stage, to bring more interest to bear on making it fresh again and using it as vitally as we can for theatre on campus. This was all done under the auspices and funding of the Centre for the History of Emotions, an ARC Centre of Excellence. The interest in replica Elizabethan stages is worldwide at the moment, so what we're doing is part of an international movement sparked mainly by the success of Shakespeare's Globe Theatre in London, which, against all dire prophecies, in fact succeeded wildly, and there's a full house every night. And I remember back in 1990, the man who was behind the rebuilding of the replica Globe in London, Sam Wanamaker, came and we talked on this stage, and he at that stage rather whimsically said, "Look, I've got to raise £8 million to build my Globe Theatre. You've got this one free." We said, this should be world famous. Why isn't it? So that certainly gave me a sense of the historic and international significance of the stage. And the last week of our collaboratory or symposium with international figures was part of putting this stage on the world map. The next milestone is 2014, when the stage, the New Fortune stage, is 50 years old, and we hope there'll be a lot of use of it and a lot of celebrations when that year comes up. In this particular event last week, some players from La Trobe came across to do an authentic original practices Elizabethan performance, and this was very well attended and a great success, but also confirmed just what a brilliant stage it is, that the actors are not needing to project forward as in a regular modern theatre. They're talking to people all around them. It's a theatre in the round, and up and down, up the 3 levels and the pit here. And wherever you are in the theatre, if this actor is standing in the middle of the stage here, he would be no more than, let's say, about 10 yards from anybody in the whole theatre. So he can speak very personally, very intimately, directly to the people in the audience as part of the stage almost. And this can generate enormously electrifying emotional effects, which is simply impossible to do in an indoor proscenium arch stage where the actors are separate from the audience and need to project a long way to the back. So after our 2014 celebrations for the 50th birthday of the New Fortune Theatre, our next great milestone, I would like to see an international festival of Shakespeare in the year 2016, centred throughout the year on the New Fortune Theatre. The significance of that is 2016 is 400 years after Shakespeare's death, and there will be huge international events all around the world, and I think we can really put the New Fortune stage and UWA and Western Australia on the map.
It's delightful I love the name of this. It's called Collaboratory, and I really love the fact that you could go to a place where people who do the art, people who are actors, are listening to scholars who are listening to actors, so that in every session I've been to, there's been this wonderful interface between what's practical and what's theoretical, and how the two might go together. And this space, which is so charming and delightful, gives us some idea of how to work things through, because we don't really know these texts until we see how they work in terms of time and space and a person's body. So this is a really wonderful thing to have put together. And insofar as the emotions are concerned, it's hard for me to speak about it. We've got the emotions of the actors and the emotions of the characters and all that, but you do have, for me right now, because the show is going to start soon, just the thrill of right before a show, having all of this, the actors getting prepared, beautiful day, and the sense that a show is about to take place in the context of all the things that we've been talking about. So it's really delightful to be here for that. A lot of the people involved in what we do talk about plays with the actors. Our actors are themselves quite learned, and they and it's a great place where the two worlds come together. And so the Blackfriars Playhouse was one of Shakespeare's indoor theaters. His other theater, of course, was the Globe, and the space that we're in is the Fortune, which was designed based on the Globe, except for the fact they wanted to be square instead of round. So I kind of represent, in a way, what we've done in Stanton, Virginia, where we have taken very seriously the idea of let's look at the space and put on plays there, see what we learn about it. But what we've also learned is that it works for the most modern of reasons. Audiences are close, they feel a part of the show, and there's a real sort of delight in the room. And that's, again, what I feel on this beautiful day. There's a delight all around in the room.
Well, for one thing, really exciting thing about this space, when you come into it and you look around you and you realize I can see everybody. I can see everybody, and I can be seen by everyone as well. That in this theatre, unlike most theatres that most young people are used to going to, let alone going to the cinema or watching TV. We go to the cinema in a darkened place. But here we watch and we share the same light. We share the same light with the actors. And that really does make a difference. It makes something exciting happen when you feel that you're together experiencing an event which otherwise you couldn't experience. I mean, we live in a very atomized culture, and theatre is a counterbalance to that in so many ways. And also I think this theatre, when young people come in and they experience it as people who come to see a show and they come to hear a show, because this theatre is very much a theatre based on language, and it's the primacy of spoken text that's so what it depends on, what it relies on, what it uses. And this is a great space for the spoken text. It feels intimate. You feel as if you're talking to people just a few yards away from you. And sometimes, especially when you're young, you often go to the theatre because you can't afford to sit in the best seats, so you sit a long way away. And the actors are about this high. But they're not this high in this theatre, they're that big. They're as big as you. And so you get an intimate experience where you really feel people are talking to you, not just talking to some abstract thing or person, but they're talking to you. It's a play made for you by those actors, and that's what's exciting, and I think that's what people will gain from watching performances in this space.
And so, what's your view on this collaboratory process? What did you gain from this?
Well, I've enjoyed the collaboratory hugely. I think, well, first of all, I've enjoyed it because I've actually learnt something. I've learned quite a lot from people who know far more about theatre history than I do. I'm not a theatre historian as such. My own area of expertise, such as it is in contemporary performance, and I document performance, write about it and film it. But I've learnt something about the behaviour of audiences in the early modern theatres, what people did, and that it's obvious really, isn't it? But sometimes you think of audiences being quiet and respectful and silent and focused, but of course in reality they're not. You'll all know that from time to time in a performance you drift off, you start thinking about your supper, or if you're English you start thinking about closing time and getting out of the theatre to have a beer before the pubs close. You don't give your whole soul and attention to it, and it's perfectly all right. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be too respectful towards theatre. Theatre's a rough art. It can take it. It likes the to and the fro, and it likes a bit of respect, but it also can deal with a little bit of disrespect too. So don't be frightened of this theatre and this kind of theatre. That's what the collaboratory has reminded me of. Also, you know, it's been interesting to hear people with such huge depths of knowledge about the conditions of early modern theatre, and they've been able to express that extremely articulately and creatively and in a very engaging, very performative way. So it's been fun.
For me, the most fascinating thing about the New Fortune Collaboratory was first the way that the researchers from overseas, from the Globe, from the Blackfriars Theatre in Virginia, could actually show how the distinctive conditions of the Shakespearean theatre actually change the relationships and the emotional reactions between the actors and the audience, and between the actors and other actors, and between the audience and other audience members. So they pointed out that where you have kind of audience around the three sides of the stage and where it's all equal daylight, there's an interaction always going on, not only between the actors on the stage and the audience, but between members of the audience in different parts of the theatre and other members of the audience. And you can actually demonstrate the emotional effects these had. One of the researchers, the postgraduate student from the Globe, for instance, had actually done a study on how many people faint at performances at the reconstructed Globe. And it's a lot more than ever do it in what's now our traditional proscenium arch, blacked out theatre. And it seems to be a kind of contagious emotion. It's not just people who've been standing a long time or when it's hot. It appears to happen with the most intensely emotional plays, the most bloodthirsty and gripping drama, and it appears to happen among groups. So there's a kind of transferred emotional effect going on, which you can actually demonstrate in the physiological reactions of the audience. And then the second thing that amazed me was how many of the factors that they'd noticed as part of the Shakespearean theatre performance and the Shakespearean theatre experience were actually demonstrated when it came to the performance of Henry IV on the New Fortune stage. Now, I don't say that we had people flaking out, but you definitely had that reaction between the audience, and I felt it myself. There's a part in the play where Fastolf is talking about the men he's recruited to go to war, and they're all very poor, they're destitute, they're desperate, and he speaks of them very slightingly. It doesn't matter, they're just cannon fodder. Now, the way they could do it in the daylight theatre was to make the audience into those people. So he was speaking of the groundlings, the audience in front of the stage, to the other actors, as if they were these poor people designed to be killed. But that meant that other members of the audience, like myself, looking on from the upper galleries, looked down and saw our fellow audience, as it were, incorporated into the play. And it had such a profound emotional effect. You know, it made one feel so intensely horrified and sorrowful that I was really quite surprised at how much more powerful it was than the traditional portrayal of that scene. So that in turn means to me that if we can get that New Fortune Theatre properly renovated and properly operating as a Shakespearean stage, the possibilities are just limitless for getting in great theatre companies from overseas who will want to perform in that proper replica arena, for using workshops for students and for teachers and for drama groups here, just for bringing a new theatre experience to the Perth audiences. The possibilities are amazing and tremendously exciting. And I think this collaboratory has shown us the value that such a reconstructed theatre can be to Perth, to the arts community in the whole of Australia, and indeed to the international arts community.